The rain was coming down so hard it felt like the sky itself was falling. Chris Dalton, a worn-out single dad just trying to make it through another long shift at the warehouse, didn't expect anything unusual that night. He was only taking the back alley shortcut home because he couldn't afford to be late. His daughter, Lily, hated sleeping without saying goodnight. He never missed it. Not once. But fate had other plans. As his truck rolled slowly past the rows of dark buildings, Chris noticed something, a flash of blue, then a faint movement on the ground. At first he thought it was just trash blowing in the storm, but then he saw the badge glint under the streetlight. His heart stopped. It wasn't trash. It was a woman. A police officer. Barely breathing. And in that moment, everything changed. Before we begin, if you love true stories about kindness, humanity, and moments that restore faith in the world, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Welcome to Kindness Diaries, where every story reminds us that a single good deed can change a life forever. Chris slammed the truck door open and rushed through the rain. The woman was slumped against a brick wall, her uniform soaked, her hand weakly pressing against her side. Blood mixed with rainwater and ran in thin streams down her vest. Her lips trembled as she tried to speak. "Help, please." Her voice was barely a whisper. Chris didn't hesitate. He had no weapon, no training, nothing but the instinct to do what was right. He crouched beside her, supporting her head as gently as he could. "My name's Chris," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Stay with me. I'm calling 911. But as he reached for his phone, the officer grabbed his wrist. No time," she gasped. They'll come back." Chris froze. "Come back? Who?" In the distance he saw smoke rising from the alley entrance. A police cruiser lay crashed against a dumpster, its lights flickering weakly through the storm. Something terrible had happened here. The woman's breathing grew shallow. Panic surged through him, but then he remembered Lily. He remembered how scared she looked whenever she scraped her knee or woke with a nightmare. Back then, she needed him to be calm. She needed him to be strong. And this officer, this stranger, needed him now in the same way. He lifted her carefully into his arms. She winced in pain but didn't fight. Chris pushed through the rain, heading toward his truck. He laid her gently in the back seat, then jumped into the driver's side. "Hold on," he said. "I'm getting you to the hospital." The road was flooded, his tires slipping on every turn, but Chris kept going. He dialed 911 on speaker, shouting over the storm, explaining the situation. Dispatch instructed him to meet an ambulance halfway. "Stay awake," Chris repeated as he drove. "I've got you. You're not dying tonight." The officer looked at him, her eyes full of fear but also gratitude. "What's your daughter's name?" she asked weakly. "Lily," he said, blinking away tears. "She's 7. Smartest kid I know." The officer nodded slowly. "Tell her, her dad is a hero." Then her eyes closed. "Hey, no. Stay with me," he yelled. As if answering his plea, the wail of sirens echoed through the storm. Chris swerved into the emergency pull-off lane as an ambulance approached. He jumped out, waving frantically. The paramedics rushed to the truck, pulling the officer onto a stretcher. Chris stood there, soaked, shaking, his heart pounding harder than the rain. One of the paramedics turned to him. "Sir, if you hadn't found her when you did, she wouldn't have made it this far." Chris watched them load her into the ambulance. In that moment, he felt something powerful, hope. But he never expected what would happen next. The next morning, after barely 3 hours of sleep, Chris dragged himself to the hospital. He didn't know why, maybe curiosity, maybe guilt, or maybe the simple need to know if the woman he'd tried so hard to save was alive. A nurse recognized him immediately. "You're Chris Dalton, right?" The man who brought in Officer Ramirez. He nodded awkwardly. "She's alive," the nurse said with a warm smile. "She's asking for you." Chris felt something loosen in his chest, relief, gratitude, maybe both. He followed the nurse into a quiet recovery room. Officer Ramirez lay in bed, pale but awake. When she saw him, she smiled softly. "You came," she whispered. Just wanted to make sure you were okay, Chris said. She reached for his hand. Thank you. You didn't just save my life. If the people who attacked me had found you, you would have been in danger too. Chris shook his head. Anyone would have done the same. No, she said. You'd be surprised. Before Chris could respond, the door swung open. Several police officers entered, followed by the police chief. Chris stiffened. Had he done something wrong? The chief stepped forward. Mr. Dalton, he said, your bravery last night didn't just save one of our own. It helped us identify the men responsible for attacking her. Because you got her here alive, she was able to give a statement. We already have 2 suspects in custody. Chris blinked. I just did what I could. The chief smiled. And we intend to honor that. He handed Chris a small certificate of recognition. Chris stared at it, stunned. He had never been honored for anything in his life. He wasn't rich. He wasn't powerful. He was just a dad trying to do right by his daughter. But the surprises weren't over. Mr. Dalton, another officer said, Officer Ramirez told us about your daughter. She mentioned